At 76, Samuel L. Jackson has had enough. Hollywood's pretend games no longer pique his interest. By revealing the names of 5 actors he detests, he just surprised everyone. Fake handshakes, dishonest politics behind the scenes, and betrayed co-stars have plagued him for decades. I can conjugate, and a lot of people can. So, I don't need you to write black vernacular for me. I can say what you want said, but you need to say it this way. Fans were always aware of a problem. The sly asides, the tight looks, and the unmistakable shade. The gloves are off now, though. Samuel is more than a hint anymore. Bridges are being set on fire by him. Simply wait to hear the names. This one is going to choke the film industry. I grew up in the segregated South when folks started talking about how you feel about what you heard all my life. Okay, now, what? Do you think he has a right to? He's a writer. He has a right to write anything he wants to write. I don't censor people. Let's get this straight. Samuel L. Jackson is more than just a celebrity. He is among the most influential individuals in the industry. His films have earned over $27 billion worldwide during his more than 50 years in the industry. He still refuses to submit to anyone. His direct eyes and sharp voice allow him to quickly identify Hollywood impersonators. The large house is where he will be staying. He has slaves, Steve. He's fed up with being silent after all this time. Now pull out your purple lightsabers and Marvel checks. This is the Samuel L. Jackson that is not wanted by Hollywood. The individual who defied all regulations, cleared his own path, and refused to be influenced by the business world. Is it possible that you know Sam? Not so quick. Steven Spielberg was rejected twice by this individual. He instructed George Lucas to adapt Star Wars to his vision. His response to Marvel's attempt to persuade him to accept less was, double the paycheck or Nick Fury was gone. But let's talk about his list first. His Can't Stand Club was played by 5 individuals. Spike Lee himself is at the top of that list. Yes, you heard correctly. Samuel L. Jackson versus Spike Lee. For years, 2 groups have been at odds, but until now, no one has had the courage to expose it. Nor was the battle a minor one. This had nothing to do with ego conflicts or creative disagreements on set. This was not pride, power, or trust. It was once believed that Samuel and Spike would make the ideal black film duo. These 2 titans combined to shape culture. Then, however, things became bad. A war that lasted for decades, icy stares, and cruel remarks. Hollywood tried to downplay it, but the truth always comes out. How long have you known each other? Wow, since 1980. I met Spike while working on Soldier's Play, so maybe 1984 or 1985. Samuel has now verified it. The worst enemy ever is Spike Lee. In the late 1980s, Spike Lee was more than just a filmmaker. He rocked Hollywood and altered the way people thought about culture. Samuel L. Jackson, a hungry up-and-coming performer, was in the center of that wave. Spike allowed Sam to take early naps by opening the door for him. Together with the well-known radio DJ Mr. Senor Love Daddy, first in School Days, 1988, and later in Do the Right Thing, 1989. The relationship did not end there. They collaborated once more in Jungle Fever and Mo Better Blues. Jackson truly blew everyone away at that point. He did a fantastic job portraying the crack-addicted brother, Gator, and it felt very authentic. He caused such a stir at the Cannes Film Festival that they created an award specifically for him. Think about that. Cannes broke its own rules and gave Jackson the Best Supporting Actor award, which they hadn't even intended to give, because of his sincere and poignant performance. They haven't done it again since. Sam was working at that level. Fans believed it was meant to be, after observing how well they got along. Like DiCaprio and Scorsese, but louder, edgier, and more daring. Spike and Sam were supposed to be the next big thing in black cinema. First of all, Spike, so glad you're sitting down. After 18 consecutive home losses, the Knicks won tonight. I repeat, the Knicks won tonight. However, the dream team was short-lived. By 1992, the situation had completely changed. Spike was preparing for the civil rights epic Malcolm X, which would determine the fate of his career. Naturally, he wanted Jackson to join. Baines is the character in the play who, while Malcolm is incarcerated, introduces him to Islam. It had a significant role and was an important character. Jackson gave it a shot. He was correct. He received the part. And then there was silence. Are you there, Samuel L. Jackson? More than any other star, with 152 films that brought in $27 billion at the box office. When Spike received the news from Sam's agency, he was not thrilled. Jackson stood up and walked away. Why? Because the lowest salary the Screen Actors Guild would allow him to receive was scale plus 10, which Spike gave him. Put differently, actors should be paid the absolute minimum. A young star who had just blazed through Cannes was insulted. Jackson rejected it outright. What about Spike? For him, it was more than just work. It hurt him. The money didn't matter to him. Friendship, loyalty, and honor were on the line. That one act ruined their relationship, and the fallout was awful. Spike later stated, "What bothered me wasn't that he didn't want to do the movie. It was that he had his agent call me." Spike Lee believed their connection went beyond business. It was more than just deals for him. It was about respect. Instead of sending an agent to speak with him, he assumed Samuel L. Jackson would give him a call directly. Sam wasn't going to play that game, though, as Jackson believed that the supposed friendship was more like being expected to be totally loyal. Years later, Jackson did not distort the facts when he finally discussed what had transpired. It wasn't the nicest conversation, he agreed. What did Spike need to say? And Sam? He dismissed it with a laugh. But he was really irritated by the tone. Spike seemed to believe that he should always be appreciative of him for providing him with early parts. Spike did not create him, and Jackson made that very clear. They supported one another. Spike ought to have also observed how much Jackson's talent and enthusiasm improved those films. Jackson exerted himself further. What was actually happening? Behind the scenes was revealed when he brought up the money issue. Spike oversaw Malcolm X in 4 capacities: acting, producing, writing, and directing. He wanted the actors he needed to realize his idea to work for free at the same time. In response, Jackson growled, "You want to pay me scale while you're getting 4 salaries? Nah. Let me contribute to your cause and earn real money while I'm at it." Being so honest didn't go over well at all. Sam wasn't done yet. One thing was clear. He deserved to be there. Why stay if Spike couldn't pay him fairly, or even give him a cut of the profits in the end? It wasn't like he was a failing actor looking for a break. He didn't want to miss his chance to work in Hollywood. The time couldn't have been more off. Jackson got the most important call of his life, just as the Malcolm X story was going viral. "You just won an award at Cannes for what?" his agent inquired. The sign was that he no longer needed Spike, so Jackson chose to join Willem Dafoe and Mickey Rourke in White Sands instead of Spike's historic blockbuster. It was bold, risky, but it sent their careers in 2 different directions. What followed was 22 years of total silence, with no collaborations, no public shout-outs, and no collaborations. Jackson collaborated with Tarantino, Scorsese, and Marvel, but Spike wasn't in any of those groups. Jackson didn't just defend Quentin when Spike brought up Tarantino's use of the N-word in Django Unchained. It's just another way of saying Spike needs to shut the fucks up. This line went viral in Hollywood. The tension was no longer a secret. It was loud, real, and clear. What people in the industry used to whisper behind closed doors became a well-kept secret. Some insiders blamed Jackson for not wanting to play the game, while others said it was Spike's ego. However, the fight was really about one thing: being in charge. Spike demanded loyalty, Jackson wanted to be free, and neither man was willing to compromise. Jackson has frequently claimed that Jungle Fever saved his life, and this is the same film that gave him his big break. He had just left rehab just before filming, and although he was still shaking and hardly able to move, he showed up. His performance was so honest and genuine that the Fruit of Islam, who were on set, attempted to physically remove him because they believed a junkie had just entered the room. Jackson even claimed, "I didn't need makeup." To Jackson, it was more than just business. It was betrayal. "I was Gator." That part not only made his career, it brought him back to life, which is why the hurt felt so much later. The person who gave him the chance was now trying to trap him, give him scraps, and expect him to be grateful. After more than 2 decades, the ice finally broke in 2013. Their wives reconciled, and it was through them that the two men were able to sit down together once more. The walls started to slowly come down. "Not since Jungle Fever had we worked together." Jackson said, "It was a great get-together." A Spike then revealed that he was making Old Boy again, and Jackson seized the opportunity, asking, "Can I be in it?" After more than 2 decades apart, they immediately returned to the set together. According to Jackson, it felt effortless and natural, as if the old spark had never truly gone out. "He doesn't get in the way of my art." "Let's face it, though," the singer told Playboy, "I bring whatever I want, and it's cool." Decades of silence, resentment, and betrayal cannot be made up for with a nice meal and a dull movie. In Hollywood, everyone was aware that the scars remained. At what point did Samuel L. Jackson express his thoughts about someone to the world? It all came out when he dropped his list of the 5 stars he despises the most. This was more than mere Hollywood chit-chat. The objective, according to Sam, was to make a permanent settlement. Don't pretend to smile or whisper anymore. Spike Lee was at the top of that list, don't get me wrong. Regardless of the number of awards they received or the significance of their early work, this battle was never truly about the art. It was about who refused to be respectful. Spike wasn't the only person pursued. In theory, Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson should have been a perfect match in Hollywood. Decades of commitment, 6 projects together, and some of the most well-known movie scenes ever. They shaped an era together. Steven's icy menace in Django Unchained and Jules's booming sermons in Pulp Fiction were frightening for reasons other than acting alone. They were cultural tremors. For Jackson, it is sufficient to be labeled a racist. In his works, Tarantino either employs the N-word or similar terms himself, or assigns them to characters. In Tarantino's films, Jackson has always played the most significant role. It was once said by Tarantino himself, "Sam writes it like poetry." Only Jackson could put up with those lengthy, twisted, profanity-filled tirades. The trust, however, broke here. Because someone like Tarantino, who wants to be in control of everything, began to feel hurt by that poetry. Supporters began discussing the possibility that Sam wasn't acting. It's possible that he added the flavor to those well-known lines. What about the crazy part? Sometimes fans were correct. Recall the phrase "cool in the gang" from Pulp Fiction. Tarantino didn't like that Samuel L. Jackson made it up on the fly. That was the moment he gave up. "I get mad that people think Sam came up with most of his own dialogue because I wrote Sam's dialogue." They weren't just upset about that. It was pride that was wounded. Tarantino views his stories as sacred texts, not an anomaly. Acting isn't about performing. They are intended to assist him in achieving his objectives. However, it really hit home when Jackson was made the face of his business, while he was credited with the swagger and style. When Tarantino was with other people, he smiled, but behind closed doors, the tension was building and would eventually explode. Let's look ahead to 2024. The film Pulp Fiction is 30 years old. Supporters anticipated a cordial encounter filled with memories when Tarantino and Jackson took the stage together at the TCM Classic Film Festival. Rather, it was difficult to avoid the side-eyes, the energy was off, and the mood was chilly. As usual, Tarantino studied his own films as if they were sacred texts in an attempt to inflate his own ego, but Jackson refused to give him the final say. What makes Tarantino movies different from everyone else is how much time is spent saying who you are and how you feel, he said with a cruel tone. To put it another way, I made those people come to life while Jackson told Quentin, "It's not your camera angles." It hurt, but it was true, even if Tarantino didn't like it. But the tension wasn't limited to the stage. When Tarantino chastised Marvel on a show, it went viral. That individual has been Nick Fury's face for nearly 2 decades. He came out and said, "Marvel actors aren't real movie stars. They're just placeholders for franchise names. Big mistake. Samuel L. Jackson." Sam refused to let it go. To silence. "Them," he responded harshly on The View, saying, "Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther. You can't argue with that." This wasn't just a friendly argument between friends. There was a clash of ideas. Tarantino believed that movies were works of art, while Jackson believed that movies had an impact on culture and moved people beyond film snobs. The underlying meaning was very clear. Just because Tarantino didn't like capes and CGI didn't mean he could erase the effect of Marvel heroes. Sam has never needed shiny Oscars to show how great he is. He made it clear that he'd rather wear an eye patch or swing a sword than ask for praise. We're pretty sure that drives Tarantino crazy. Here's the real blade, though. Samuel L. Jackson no longer worships Quentin Tarantino. The actor who made Quentin's writings famous is now calling him cocky, ignoring his ideas, and refusing to get involved in Hollywood politics. The next name on his list shocked everyone. It's no coincidence that 2 Hollywood heavyweights with decades of experience who have collaborated with big names like Spielberg and Tarantino never worked together on a film. That's not making plans. You can do that. Although fans may see Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson grinning for the cameras, their rivalry is one of the most fascinating in Hollywood. In secret, there has been competition for years. These 2 men are 2 of the few Black actors in history who have regularly starred in movies that made more than $100 million at the box office. That is rare air, and it makes things tense. When Training Day came out in 2001, the competition became very clear. Jackson wanted to play Alonzo Harris, the corrupt and complicated police officer at the center of the movie, but Denzel won the part. His performance went on to win him his 2nd Oscar, and a lot of attention at the box office. That win made it clear that Denzel Washington was still the best actor in Hollywood when it came to serious dramatic parts. Jackson turned around instead of going after him straight on. He built his business in the area of blockbusters. Marvel and Star Wars are both huge brands that Denzel never got involved with. Jackson made billions at the box office while Denzel won a lot of awards. He is the highest-grossing actor in movie history, with more than $27 billion made from his movies around the world. He built a business instead of going after Oscars. She says, "Yes, I do," which is the big twist. You do watch all of your movies, right? Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson have 2 very different kinds of success. Denzel is the classic actor's actor, and his success is built on strong, award-winning roles. Jackson, on the other hand, became a global superstar who rules over every property he works on. On the surface, that difference has led to a rivalry that Hollywood never wanted to talk about, but couldn't hide. Denzel Washington is known as the actor who disappears so completely into his parts that people forget they're watching him. He didn't just quit playing, he also founded his own production company, Mandalay Entertainment, so he could tell the stories he wanted to tell. So, instead of blending in, he made himself stand out by creating a bold, unique character. Nick, Fury and Mace Windu are more than just roles, they're significant parts of pop culture. And his deal with Marvel? Well known. This is one of the best deals for actors in the series' history. Jackson demonstrated that big hits weren't just ways to make money. They could be artistically fulfilling and earn an absurd amount of money. So, Jackson is the brand's power, and Denzel is the purity of the talent. The harsh reality is that companies don't see them as a good fit. They see them as scary, not because they hate each other, but because their instincts, markets, and styles are so different. Denzel avoids green screen glasses with a lot of computer-generated imagery, while Jackson excels at them. Jackson doesn't. Try to get the same kinds of Oscar bait thrillers that Denzel does, and their jobs are almost designed to prevent them from working together, which is how they've been in charge for so long without ever sharing the show. They're not friends, they're kings, but they're in different countries, each one alone in his own lane. After years of Hollywood drama, fake smiles, and betrayals behind closed doors, Samuel L. Jackson is finally speaking out loud, honestly, and without any filters. He is throwing bombs, and the question is why those lanes are being merged. That would violate the rules that have kept them both legendary. What about the harm? Hollywood is trembling over it.